All right, let's talk about a massive opportunity. The European Union is putting billions of euros on the table for green shipping. And for the very first time, the maritime industry can get a piece of the action. We're talking about one of the biggest funds on the planet for low-carbon tech, and the doors are now officially open for ship owners, for builders, for innovators. So let's dive in and break down what this really means for you.
Okay, let's just start with the number that gets everyone's attention, 2.9 billion euros. Now, this is not just another grant program you fill out a form for. This is a massive financial engine designed to seriously supercharge the green tech revolution. And the crucial part? A huge slice of this pie is now specifically reserved for cleaning up the maritime sector.
So what is this giant pot of money? It's called the Innovation Fund, and its mission is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly ambitious. It's all about taking these breakthrough green technologies that are stuck on the drawing board and actually getting them out into the real world. Funding that last critical step from a cool prototype to a commercial reality that can really make a difference. So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll start with the huge scale of this whole thing. Then, we'll get into why shipping's inclusion is such a game changer. We'll cover the nuts and bolts of how you can get funding for your fleet. We'll unpack a really critical Made in Europe rule you need to know about. And finally, we'll look at the special competitive edge that maritime projects actually get. Okay, first, let's zoom out. You have to understand, this fund doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a key part of the EU's entire green strategy, right alongside giants like the European Green Deal and the Net Zero Industry Act. Honestly, you can think of it as the financial rocket fuel for all of that policy.
And the level of ambition here, it is absolutely crystal clear. This fund is one of the main tools the EU is using to hit one of the most aggressive climate targets in the world, a 55% cut in emissions by 2030. It's all about turning those big, ambitious goals into real projects on the ground, and now, on the water.
And that brings us to the big headline for our industry. For years, shipping has kind of been on the outside looking in on funds like this. Well, not anymore. The maritime sector is now officially 100% eligible for this multi-billion euro fund. This is a huge moment, and it completely changes the landscape for green shipping in Europe.
And look, this isn't just some vague promise in a press release. It's literally baked into the law. The revised EU Emissions Trading System Directive explicitly says it extends the Innovation Fund to the maritime sectors. That's the kind of language that makes this opportunity solid, official, and ready for you to act on.
So you're probably asking, okay, great, but what can I actually get funding for? Well, the scope is incredibly broad. We're talking everything from developing new fuels like green ammonia or methanol to installing zero-emission propulsion like wind assist systems or even hydrogen fuel cells. And here's a big one for the existing fleet. It specifically covers retrofitting ships with new innovative tech. That's a huge potential market. It even goes ashore, supporting things like port infrastructure for these new fuels. Right. Let's get into the practical side of things. The fund is set up to help out projects of all different sizes. I mean, from small-scale pilot programs to huge, fleet-wide transformations. The first step is figuring out which category your idea fits into. It's all broken down into 3 tiers based on what's called CAPEX, which is really just the total investment cost of the project. Small projects, they're looking at between 2.5 and 20 million euros. Medium is anything from 20 up to 100 million. And then you've got the large-scale projects, which is anything over 100 million euros. So as you can see, there is a spot for pretty much any level of ambition. Now, here's the number your finance team is going to love. The grant can cover up to 60% of a project's relevant costs. So what does that mean? It's the extra cost of choosing the new, innovative green tech instead of the standard, old-school version. For example, it's the price difference between a new methanol-ready engine and a regular one. This support is designed specifically to close that cost gap and make it much, much easier to invest in the future. Okay, I need you to listen closely to this next part because it is absolutely vital. This is especially true for anyone in shipbuilding or the retrofit market. See, this funding comes with one very specific and very strategic string attached. We're calling it the Made in Europe rule. So the big question is, if you're planning to use this money to build a new ship or retrofit an old one, what is the one requirement that is completely non-negotiable? And here's the answer. The manufacturing of the key tech components or the installation of that tech onto the ship must happen within the EU or the European Economic Area. That includes places like Norway and Iceland. And this is a very deliberate strategy.
It's to make sure that this fund doesn't just clean up shipping, but that it also builds up Europe's own green tech industry at the same time. You can really see the thinking behind this when you look at how the fund itself is split. There are two main pots of money. One is for general decarbonization. That's for actually using the technology, like putting it on a ship. But there's another huge pot just for clean tech manufacturing. And that's for building the factories in Europe that make the technology. The EU is playing both sides. They want to deploy the tech and produce it too.
So you might be wondering, how do they enforce this? Well, it's not a handshake deal, that's for sure. To get your money, you'll have to submit a formal, mandatory declaration that proves the European origin of your key parts and equipment. This isn't a suggestion, it's a hard requirement. Your funding literally depends on it.
When you boil it all down, this all points back to a core strategic goal. This fund is just as much about industrial policy as it is about environmental policy. The whole idea is to build a strong, competitive European supply chain for green tech, create high-value jobs, and reduce dependency on other parts of the world. All right, finally, let's talk about some good news. The EU totally gets that decarbonizing shipping is a uniquely tough challenge. So to speed things up, they've actually built some special advantages, some perks, if you will, right into the application process, just for maritime projects. So what are these advantages? There are two main ones. First, there is a priority ranking. If a shipping project and a project from another sector end up with the exact same score, the maritime project wins. It gets the tiebreaker. Second, maritime projects can get extra bonus points on their application score just for being a maritime project. Pretty cool, huh?
And there's a simple reason for all this special treatment. Shipping is what's known as a hard-to-abate sector. It's just technically and economically really, really difficult to decarbonize. So this is a clear signal from the EU that they are putting a thumb on the scale to help maritime projects get across the finish line.
And lastly, the details you need to act. So get your calendars out. The official call opens on December 4th, 2025. You have until April 23rd, 2026 to get your submission in. You'll find out the results in the fall of 2026, and the first grants will start being signed from November that year. The clock is ticking, so now is the time to start getting your plans together.
So there you have it, a multi-billion euro fund, a game-changing inclusion for shipping, special perks for maritime projects, and a clear-as-day strategy to build up Europe's green tech industry. The opportunity is absolutely immense, but so is the strategy behind it. So the only real question left is your company ready to navigate what comes next?